Welcome to the Brave Women at Work podcast. This is your host, Jen Pastikas. I'm so glad you're here. With the Brave Women at Work podcast, you'll get the resources and tips along with real-world stories and humor to empower and inspire you to take bolder and braver actions in your career and life. Welcome to the Brave Women at Work podcast. This is your host, Jen Pastikas. I'm so glad you're here. Well, hey everyone, how are you doing out there this week? So do you know the 6 degrees of separation of Kevin Bacon? You know that game? I know that game. So I have that today with Brene Brown. Yes, you heard it here, Brene Brown. My guest today, Aiko Bethea, has worked for and trained with Brene Brown. And while I have to say that's very cool, Aiko is amazing in her own right. She is, like my 13-year-old daughter says, a baddie. She is a really amazing woman. And unlike many of my other podcast interviews where I'm doing the interviewing of the guest, this felt like a game of beautiful ping pong of questions back and forth. Really shows Aiko's coaching prowess, which was just lovely. It was just lovely to be part of, and such a departure. Aiko even interviewed me at points, and I learned a lot from her about leadership, confidence, values, and more during our conversation. I am confident that you're going to get a lot from this discussion, so get ready to take some mental or actual notes if you're a note taker like I am. So during the conversation, Aiko and I chatted about what does a well leader look like? How can a leader prioritize their well-being? So if you're like me, many times I put myself to the bottom of the list as a leader, and Aiko is saying, nope, 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 we've got to change that. We've got to prioritize our well-being as leaders. What is the number one issue inhibiting good leadership, and what can we do about it? How do our values come into play when discussing leadership? We had a great conversation on that. And why does Aiko call her coaching company Rare Coaching and Consulting? And what is rare about the work that she does? Besides Aiko's personal resources and her own books, what are some other leadership books that she would recommend to us that we have on our TBR, our to be read pile? So here is more about Aiko. Aiko Bethea is a leader, builder, and connector who has successfully navigated leadership roles in government, philanthropic, nonprofit, and private sectors. In each sector, Aiko created inaugural roles to meet growing organizational needs. She served as Director of Compliance for the City of Atlanta and Deputy Director of Grants and Contracts Management at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. She was also the head of diversity and inclusion for the Fred Hutch Cancer Research Center. Aiko also served as the senior director of the Daring Way and Dare to Lead facilitator communities of the Brene Brown Education and Research Group. Aiko is the founder of Rare Coaching and Consulting. Through her work, she coaches leaders and organizations to remove the internal and external barriers to inclusion, allowing them to understand one another as people, as colleagues, and teams in more connective ways. During her childhood and throughout her career, Aiko has been in places where people who look like her were underrepresented. She believes that when you anchor into your values and discover your voice, you can begin to live the life you want to live and be exactly who you want to be. Aiko's writing has been published in Harvard Business Review, Forbes, and the anthology You Are Your Best Thing. Her book that's coming up, Anchored, Aligned, and Accountable, a framework for transcending, I'm going to say it, bullshit, and transforming our lives and work, is coming out in January of 2026. She holds a law degree from UNC Chapel Hill and a bachelor's from Smith College. So if Brave Women at Work and, of course, the whole podcast has helped you professionally or personally, please be sure to share the show with a friend, family member, or colleague. And of course, if you can leave a rating and review, I would appreciate it so much. Leave that rating and review, and don't forget to subscribe in Apple Podcasts. Also, if you haven't downloaded any of my freebies from my website, go check them out at my website at bravewomenatwork.com. The three freebies are 24 career and leadership affirmations, 5 ways to managing your imposter syndrome, and one of our most popular, getting paid 10 negotiation tips. Because if you hang out with me a little while, you know that I love my clients, I love women in my community to get paid and get the benefits they so deserve. Each one of these freebies is a workbook style guide with plenty of space to write, so you can complete that on your at your own pace and on your own time. All right, let's welcome Aiko to the show. Hey Aiko, welcome to Brave Woman at Work. How are you today?
I'm doing well, excited to be here.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for being here on this pollen filled day in Atlanta.
Exactly.
We have a little bit of pollen, but you know what? My brother used to cut lawns, and he owned a landscaping firm. But my grass looks terrible this year, right? And coming from a landscaping family, it just looks off. And I was asking him, like, Jim, like, what's going on? He said we had a winter drought in Chicago, so we need water. So I think maybe that is a happen all over the country.
I could see that, especially nowadays, the weather is just unpredictable. There's no more like, oh, just the seasons how they used to be wherever you
I
are.
know.
Everything is different. There's no predictability.
I know. Well, you know what? And this has been a long time coming. I know that our schedules have been really kind of like rough. So I'm really happy that you're here today. So why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit about you? And this is a big question, Aiko. So go wherever you want. So I love to hear people's background stories and how you've gotten to where you are. So choose where you'd like to go with that.
Oh man, let me start with where I am now.
Okay.
And right now, I lead a leadership development firm called Rare Coaching and Consulting. Have a bench of about 30 certified executive coaches, pretty much all people of color. And we work with large organizations. So we work with large companies, including some federal government agencies, although that's getting a little bit
Yeah.
unwieldy.
Yeah. I was going to say,
Um,
like, well, tell us the secrets on that.
in academia, but we focus on leadership development, whether that is your organization is trying to get better at navigating conflict or want executive coaching for teams or individuals. And how did I get here? I am a recovering attorney.
Oh, wow.
I was in the city of Atlanta leading legal teams there. And from there, I was at the Gates Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, where I led teams there
Mm-hmm.
and was at Fred Hutch, a cancer research center. And now, when I left Seattle, I was in Seattle for about 11 years. I came back to Atlanta and decided to just take a bet on myself because I loved executive coaching. I was trained at Hudson Institute of Coaching, where now I'm a faculty member, so I train other coaches too. And I'm a mom of two boys. And I'm a daughter, and I'm a sister, and I'm a partner, and I hope I'm a good friend. And I think, like a lot of us, I aspire to try to be generous and boundaried in all of those spaces. The
All the
boundary
roles.
part is really important. Yes.
So tell me about where where you got coached. I never have heard of that. So tell me about that school a little bit more because I graduated from IPAC. I've heard of CTI, but I've never heard of your coaching school. So tell me about it.
So Hudson Institute of Coaching is more of a boutique, probably training ground and based in Santa Barbara. There
Okay.
are now also virtual offerings, but Frederick Hudson was the founder of it. But there's a great base. The reason why I selected Hudson was because they have this wonderful framework called Self as Coach. And it requires anybody who's being certified there to do quite a bit of work on themselves first. And I'm a
Mm,
big believer that before we go out here doing all the things that we do, we've done a degree of introspection. And a lot of our coaching at Rare is focused on introspective behavior of our clients versus the focus on outward circumstances, especially since we often cannot control those things. And through that, having people have a greater recognition of the systems they're navigating externally in the world, the systems that they're navigating internally, and making intentional choices about how do they want to show up in those spaces. What's the
mm,
impact they want to have? How are they holding themselves accountable? And that often what we found that leads to people feeling much more fulfilled and
mm.
having a life that's free of all of the roles, all of the should have, could have, would have, and instead being who they aspire to be.
That's so good. I'm going to check it out now. I'm actually like an education junkie. So I'm always like, how can I enhance my coach training? How can I enhance my
I
coach
love
training?
that.
I
Yes.
am like, oh, I'm collecting all this information. So, okay. So what would you say? Because you said that introspection. So women that are listening, people that are listening, they're probably similar where they want to get those like nuggets of information. So there's so much in so many ways you can start with that introspective journey. Do you have any thoughts on that and where someone that maybe hasn't started that journey, where would they start or where would you recommend them starting?
You know what? There's so many pathways, and the pathway is never the same for everyone. There's an
Mm,
ideal path for different folks. But I think that there's a few key questions that people can always ask themselves. One is, who do I most aspire to be? And to understand what does that look like in terms of what's the impact you're having on others? How do you feel in your own body in terms of somatically?
hmm.
And understanding also how, when you're navigating the world, what impact do you want to have on other folks? And understanding current state, what impact am I having on people right now and beyond our own lens, which means that you have to have curiosity with other folks about how you're landing on them, how your actions are landing. Because we're really great at telling people oftentimes what our intentions are, but we're pretty trashy about understanding the impact we've had on folks, because really you need to ask people or have a pathway for open communication to learn that. And I love when you said you're just such um, a lifetime learner.
Hmm.
You always have to have that learner mindset of the curiosity and receptivity to understand what's the ecosystem around you saying about you in terms of how are people experiencing you, and is that what you want?
That's a
And
really good question because as a, for me, like busy leader, right, in corporate, so I straddle the corporate space, ICO and coaching world, right? And so often it's like a checklist. And I think in all the roles that women, it's like we're checking off the box, whether we're talking to our kids or giving direction to our employees or what have you. And we're like, we think we've checked it off, but we have no idea, nor have we taken the time or care to say, oh, how did that land for someone else?
yes. So, Jen, and I want to back up just one more because you had a great opening for an opportunity there.
Yes.
One of the questions I would have for these women is, who created those check boxes? Are those yours? Are those ones that have been offered and given to you or just indoctrinated? And now you feel like those are the boxes you should be checking off. So oftentimes we come in and there's stories we're telling ourselves that we've gotten from our communities, our family of origin, whether that is that you need to be this badass CEO, woman boss, or the traditional, you know, mom, wife, stay at home, are doing all of the things, or
Hmm.
you have to be this size, or you have to be smiling, or maybe that you have to be this badass where you don't smile and you don't show emotion and you're stoic. I want people to look at what their check boxes are, not only the what are they telling them about their how, in terms of how you're supposed to show up in the world. And is that what you want? Is that what you put on the list originally, or is that what you inherited? Are you integrated from somewhere else, or somebody told you? Move away from their and everyone else's agenda to create your own. Start from scratch about what's on those check boxes and understand what serves you and what do you want them to be. Because what I've learned is that sometimes all of the boxes have to be trashed.
So, okay, so let's walk through that a little farther because there's so many women I work with. I'm sure a lot of your clients, men and women alike, right? They get to that point in their career or their life and they don't even know which boxes are theirs and which ones they've inherited. So they get confused. Like I am right there where I was like, "Oh, these are my boxes." And then I was like, "Wait, no, these are not my boxes." And it gets super confusing.
Yes, Jen.
So, how can we help like people listening go, are these my boxes or are these the boxes from my mother and my grandmother and like the lineage? Like, how do we know?
So, Jen, I want to know, can you share with us what was the moment, what happened that catalyzed you to look at these boxes and be like, whoa, these are not mine and I don't want them?
Okay, so this is why I do this podcast. So it's because I burned out. Like, and it was like the cathartic, like I like was in a ball at my therapist's office. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, therapist's name, right? I was like, I did all the right things. Like, and if you're watching on YouTube, it's like air quotes. So like I did all the right things. I checked what I thought were the right boxes, and I was still like completely broken. And so that's why I did this. I'm doing this podcast is not just because I want women to get the skills and the education and the negotiation and all the things that you need when you enter or any point of corporate. But because as a PSA, I don't want them to end as broken as I ended. But that's what broke me open. Like I just interviewed another person that says, you know, like a betrayal of yourself. That's like almost a burnout is like a self betrayal where you're not listening to your soul's calling and you end up a little bit broken and have to pick up new pieces. And so that's really the answer, Aiko.
Yeah, I love that because what you're offering to people is not only an entry point into corporate America, not only a way to sustain themselves, but also a courageous path of how to exit if it's not serving you. So I love that you talked about how you exit it because that takes a lot of courage. And so as long as people can see I have these expansive options and nothing is a must. There are always these different opportunities, but a lot has to do, as you know, with mindset. So there are things, one, what you just shared with us is that your body somatically will tell you
Right.
this is not working for you because our bodies shut down. We may be perpetually sick, burnt out, all of these other things. So there's somatic signs and then there are also other signs in terms of not having a sense of internal fulfillment. This is very nuanced, and sometimes people haven't done the work to be able to identify, is my fulfillment coming from me in terms of the joy of in what I'm doing, or am I getting fulfillment and satisfaction from external validation and from what
Mm,
other people think about me or say about me? And it's just like that woman who's going and looking for a new role and you're speaking with her as she's transitioning and she says her resume has all the things that she's great at. And then you say, so which ones of these do you love? And she's like, none of it, but I'm really good at it. And so you say, oh, so you want more of that? Or is it that
mm-hmm.
just you're good at it? Well, I do like doing it because why? You just said that these aren't your favorite things. And it's because of external validation. This is what everybody says that I'm great at. And people love when I do X, Y, and Z. And I always do blah, blah, blah. So now you stay in the trap of because people appreciate when you do this, they say that you're good at it. You stay in this rat wheel, this
Yes.
hamster wheel, and you don't even like any of it. It's not even fulfilling to you. And so that moment of what do I want versus what is it that I'm getting external validation from? Not often are not the same things. And you have to understand where do you get your own intrinsic validation and grounding so that
Mm.
you can make choices that are serving you versus serving everybody, everything, and the systems around you.
So yeah, I'm like when this show goes live, I'm gonna have some social posts, Ico. I'll put your name on there, but it's like gonna be something around like what are your boxes? Like what were the boxes that you inherited versus like what are the boxes that are really yours?
Yeah. And that is not a one-time coaching session, nor is it a one-time therapy session. And it can when people are looking this face right in the face and squarely in the face, they often, there's a lot of large emotions that can come up, like grief. Because
Mm-hmm.
you realize, I mean, that emotion of feeling that you've spent X number of years of your life fulfilling others, and you don't even know who you are today, or you don't like who you are today,
Mm-hmm.
or you realize that you were sold this bill of goods of how you're supposed to be from people who loved you most. And it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's not who I want to be. And it can create a lot of emotions around how do I feel about my dad, my mom, my X, Y, and Z, who said these were the things I was supposed to do, and they've left me in a world of depression, internal
Mm-hmm.
frustration. There's a lot of emotions that come with that. It's not as simple as reading an HBR article and being like, tomorrow I'm going to do something different. There are a lot of emotional pauses to take and to absorb and to take the learnings from them so that we don't stay in this place or fall prey to it again.
Mm-hmm. Like I Yes, there's these like little hidden traps like in conversations that you can get like sucked in with
Yeah.
family and things like that. I'll give a small example. And I mean, I love my mom. My mom and I have an amazing relationship, but she knows that I'm moving farther and farther into this world of executive and leadership coaching and speaking because that's where my heart really sings, right? And I know you feel that because that's what you do, right? This is your platform. And she said something over Easter dinner, Aiko, that, it was like one of those little like potholes that I could fall in before. She's like, well, I really, I'm excited for you, but I hope you know what you're doing. Like that fear, that doubt came over the dinner table where
Hugging.
yeah, she's not trying to like on purpose, but she is just throwing out her fear and what she's twisting as love. And that I would have like my whole body, soul, spirit, all of that would have like taken me down for a very long time. Those comments. I'm only sharing this, and if my mom's listening, I love you, right? Like it's just that I can't take that bait because my dream is bigger than her fear. Does that make sense?
Yes, and guess what? Whatever is out there for you and who you are aspiring to be and how your expansive nature is going to be, it's bigger than anyone's fear,
Right.
even your own. And so that idea of being able to speak even when your voice shakes, to go into the unknown with excitement and curiosity, that's what I think every person is deserving of. And I love that you were able to notice that one little thing that can create a crack that
Yes.
can become this thing that swallows us up. I would say that,
Yes.
my mom, same thing, love her dearly, and she worries a lot. And so she might say, well, everything's been going so well, so I'm just worried that something's about to happen. And so I'm
Thanks a
like,
lot, Mom. Thanks a lot.
and once upon a time, I may have had some angst, like, oh my gosh, what is about to happen?
Yeah.
Or I would have felt that I needed to go and console or work through her thing for her with her. And
Yeah.
then when we opened, I said, I want to be generous and boundaried. And I realized, oh, I have my path and I am accountable for my path. And I am accountable for also where do I put my time and energy? And I try to think in terms of impactfulness. Is this the impact I want to have? If I do this, does this allow me to have the impact I want to have? And
That
so
is
when you were
so
talking about
powerful.
betrayal and
Yeah.
the burnout as a way of betrayal, another signifier of betrayal is, not living into our values
Mm,
and I love the one of these definitions that Brene actually has, which is the opposite of belonging is fitting in.
mm.
How we can betray ourselves by trying to do the external validation point of fitting in, which means you're never fully your own self, right? Because I'm seeking out and watching the ecosystem and figuring out what do I need to shift or change or do in order to fit into it versus looking inwards about who am I and how do I feel best when I'm becoming this person and having this impact, which is when you are truly belonging in your own identity in your own skin.
So I have to say you'll love this. So I've been listening. I shared this on a presentation recently to a group of women. I've been listening to a lot of India RE lately, like
One
old
of my
school kick
favorites,
it. Yeah, like
based in
kicking it way
Atlanta.
back. I know, like, hello. Oh, she's from Atlanta. Okay. So she's so awesome. And I've been listening to her song on repeat video, right? And like there's a part in that song that says, because I am a queen. And so I am just like, I'm sharing this because I'm in my late 40s and I'm just like stepping into my full worth, right? Which can scare the absolute hell out of people, by the way, because they're like used to you being a belonger, right? Or a fitter inner, right? And now I am like, no, I'm a queen. Like, no, I'm a badass. Like, this is for real. This is who I am, which is scary to people that aren't there yet. But I also want women that are listening to understand it's taken me a long time to get here. And yes, there's grief that, well, how come I wasn't ready in my 20s? But it takes what it takes. And so I'm just happy that I've arrived to the point where I can actually feel that I do bring something special to the world.
Yeah, that's that sense of self-worth. And it can be scary for people because it can also be, you can be experienced as unpredictable. And people like certainty. And they
Yeah.
like to know, what is Jen going to say? Jen's going to respond like this, and then we can have her do that, blah, blah. Like now you're easy in terms of placing you on the board on the chess game of what's going to happen. When you're actually being present and living moment by moment, you sometimes might not even know what your response might be. Even though it might be very true and still aligned with your values, if you're being present moment by moment, you don't always know in that moment what you yourself is going to do. And
You know, it's
imagine
so
what that,
funny.
how does
Yeah,
that
it's
leave
so
everybody around?
funny. Yeah, no, it's so funny you're using chess because someone had been talking to me in my corporate job, and I said, I'm one of the most powerful and unpredictable pieces on the board.
Queen.
Queen,
That's the
I can
word.
move around. I can move all over the place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's really funny. So you mentioned Brene. We all love Brene Brown on Brave Women at Work. So I looked at your site. You've done a lot of collaboration with her, and you have an anthology. You are your best thing. You know, there are women like me too that love Brene. So what is it like to collaborate with her and have relationship with her?
Yes, I would say she truly walks her talk.
Yep.
She is a learner and expansive, and that's something that I appreciate most about people who I hold near and dear. Are you able to be expansive? Are you able to own your part in things? Um, and so I think that's what I'd say, very caring person and growth centered mindset, period. And I
Hmm.
believe we are the same on, we might be the same on the Enneagram, and I forget that. But Brene is a great, I mean, I think she, as far as my experience has been with her, is that she walks her talk. And I can always appreciate
I
that.
respect that. Yeah. Okay. So what are you on the Enneagram now? I'm curious.
And now I had to stop and think and be like, well, wait, what was it? Is it a 1 and a 9? Um,
Okay. All
but yeah,
right. Well, you can look it up. I'm a one as well. I'm a reformer. I don't know if that's like
yes,
what you are.
reformer. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, God, it is one's an exhausting path. P.S. Everybody, you
Um,
we're passionate. We really we're like dogs with a bone on like issues.
which is why we have to be boundaried, right?
Yes,
So
exactly. So yeah,
everyone,
yeah.
I think everyone's goal and responsibility in this world is to be a boundaried person.
So yeah, I guess because we do talk a lot about boundaries. What does that look like to you, boundary? Because it's not easy. It's definitely not easy for a lot of women listening. So how have you leaned into being boundaried?
I think really my boundaries are defined by my values. If they're
Okay.
aligned, and I think that that is one of the um, best outputs of knowing what your values are. Your values allow you to understand what your boundaries are and identify them. They also help other people to understand what your boundaries are. So there's some things you're going to do, some things you're not going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And when people understand that intrinsically, so if I say that my value, one of my values is loyalty. So the semantics of what the word is less important than the behaviors around them.
Mm,
So even though I name it as loyalty, the behaviors that it looks like is that I tell people the truth no matter what, no matter if it
mm-hmm.
is going to hurt me or it might startle them. I want them to always tell me the truth no matter what. So somebody else
Mm-hmm.
might say, oh, that sounds like that's more like honesty or truth. To me, I define that as loyalty. Tell me
Mm,
the truth no matter what. So what that means and what anybody on my team would be able to tell you or my friends is that I'm going to have a real issue if someone is not telling me the truth no matter what. If there is some impact I'm having that is undesirable and they don't tell me. If I am doing something or doing something in such a way or that is not the impact I would want and they don't tell me that. So that would be
mm,
really hard for me to stay in relationship with somebody when that's happening, or if I'm in relationship with them and they don't want to know the truth. They refuse to hear the truth. They
mm.
can't tolerate truth. Then that is going to be a difficult relationship for me to be in as well. But it helps because now people understand like this is a boundary of mine, right? This is how I want you to engage with me.
You know, it's interesting though, like you said, your version of what that, loyalty is truth. whereas someone else would see loyalty as different. So, like you just said, it's the behaviors behind the word itself.
Yes. And the reason I probably ascribe those behaviors to loyalty is because loyalty also has this undercurrent, or maybe it's an overcurrent of courage and love.
Mm,
One of the things that is can be hardest for people to do and requires the most courage is to tell people the truth, no matter how hard or challenging it might be. And often the catalyst in doing that is your care for them or your care for the relationship. And I think that's why I ascribe that to loyalty. I actually have never said that out loud. I'm thinking about it now. So I think that's why I connect those two. And when I'm teaching about this in terms of values, I often tell people, I say, this is what um, how I define loyalty and what it looks like. Whereas somebody else might say loyalty is ride or die. No matter what I'm doing, you're right there in the front seat with me, and you've got my back no matter what, even if you know I'm doing wrong.
yep.
Um, and so that's why so you could say, Jen, that your value is family, and I could say my value is family. But for you, you might say, you know what, if I have to work 80 hours a week, my family is never going to go without. We're going to be financially stable and secure. And that's what it is. I might say, well, my value is also family, but what it looks like is that I may work part-time or stay at home, and there's some things we will have to go without, but I'm always going to be present for birthdays, funerals, when people are sick, kids are sick or whatever. And it doesn't mean one is better than the other, but we both have this value that we say is family, but our behaviors around them are very different.
That
And
is
that's
so
really
good.
important
Yeah.
for people to be able to do that. And many people, Jen, cannot even get to that next tier around what their value is. And most people love to say, oh, my value is family and faith. And then they can't attribute like what the behaviors are around it, right? Because the behavior allows you to know, one, if you're honoring that value, it helps you to hold yourself accountable. It helps you to be boundaried. It helps other people to understand what's going to motivate you or what's going to demoralize you. So
Mm.
there is a lot in this, and it helps you to also have this idea of a metric of, am I getting closer to who I aspire to be or further away? And if you can't put behaviors around it, you really kind of have a moving target. So you need
So
to be able to.
how often do you revisit your values? And then I can hear you like, and I've never heard this way, so I'm going to go through and do this again. So it's like, okay, how often are you reviewing them? Because I'm assuming they may shift, but you tell me.
So for me, I have never known mine to shift. So their loyalty
Wow.
and their justice.
Okay.
They're so core to who I am. What
Okay.
has happened, Jen, is that sometimes I might notice, wow, this is a behavior I would not have named before, but it's totally aligned and bolsters this value of justice, or the
Mm.
value of loyalty. Like the core thread of who I am doesn't change, but sometimes it might show up in, oh, this behavior is really important to it. Like, I don't know if I don't, to say that I know that my value of loyalty, it would never change in terms of it's okay for me for somebody not to be honest with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so like minor shifts, like where you're looking at a behavior, but the actual core values themselves are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very interesting. And I think that using the lens of the behaviors and really saying, well, what does loyalty mean to you as an example? What does family mean to you if that's your word? Because people will default, like you say, even in coaching, non-coaching scenarios, they just will use the boxes thing again, where they're like, oh, it should be faith and family. You know what I mean? Or like faith, family, health, love. And, and
That's
then it's
right.
like these
That's
standard
right.
ones, but it may not be right for them.
And what's non-negotiable for you? And I will say that the part about this attribute of like looking at behaviors is something that Brene raised in Dare to Lead.
Mm,
And I think that when in looking at even that exercise, what I learned from it was that, oh, and I integrated this in my coaching practice, was this does inform people's boundaries in order
hmm
for them to stay aligned with who they aspire to be. Oh, wait, this does allow somebody to have a measurement of, am I closer to who I aspire to be or not? Because am I doing those things, right? And the other thing that people are able to also look at is, why are some of these cousins of like loyalty for me? Why do they resonate or why do they not?
Mm,
But the other part is it allows me to understand what inspires me and then what demoralizes me. So if I'm in a workplace where I know that these two are my two values, justice and loyalty, and I realize, wow, there's always this like undercurrent of subterfuge that's happening because you
hmm
never quite know what's happening because people are never telling the full truth, like either by act or omission, or there's some type of manipulation happening. And you realize, okay, I know I'm not crazy, but this happened. I realize, wow, this is so counter to who I am in terms of being able to just say the thing and be clear about it. Like, I can't thrive here. Or when a decision might be really hard for you to make or something is off, when I go back to my values, I'm usually able to identify why is something not feeling right to me intuitively. So I can identify, oh, because there's this breach in my values. This is why this doesn't feel right to me. Oh, this decision's really hard, but let me go back to my values. Ah, I know the decision I need to make.
Okay, so one other thing that I'm going to go back and do, and I just wanted to ask you this before we move on, is that so let's say you're having like a friendship or a work colleague or whatever, or a work environment where you come home and there's just always like an angsty feeling, or like it's an exhausting relationship or something. Is that also like, I'm using a wastebasket here, but I'm assuming that there may be some homework assignment there to go back and, look at your values versus like what's happening or what behaviors they're presenting or something, because there's a reason like either somatically you're tired or you're stressed or your body feels off or the environment you just feel angry or whatever. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
Oh, absolutely. So we're primal creatures. So somatically, things that are happening in your body can be indicators of a range of different things. And one can be that you are dialing up a lot of capacity in order to navigate a space that is unwelcoming or is not in alignment with what's important to you. And it can also be things as simple as like your own health habits, right? But it is
Yes.
worth actually going back and doing an audit, and with that type of audit, I always ask people, start with your two values and
Right.
start there and let's see what we find out or discover. And it's very telling for people. I should also add a caveat or two, Jen, which
Yes.
is one is it is a privilege to be able to live a life where you're always in alignment with your values.
Of
It's a
course.
privileged situation to be in. But the intentionality of understanding if something is in alignment or not with my values still will allow me to have greater capacity. So let's say that I work at Acme Corporation and I realize, oh my gosh, these people are kind of underhanded. They're always hiding the ball, and there's no reward with, being honest and forthright and giving people feedback, of course, in a generous way. And I realized this is not in alignment with my values. But I also realized that the reason why I'm here and I'm not making a decision to leave is because I need to have health insurance for my family
Sure.
because I still have bills I need to pay. But by me having this realization, it allows me to have different types of boundaries with this organization. It allows me to understand why I'm here every day and to show up in a way that still preserves, my integrity or how I navigate that ecosystem or how I
hmm
allow it to impact me. So that's one thing. You can be in spaces that are in alignment with your value, but you need to be intentional and understand it, or else you'll end up doing things that you don't feel good about, and you'll end up being outside of your boundaries versus just being in a space that's outside your boundaries, right?
Yes.
The second caveat to understand is that all values have a shadow side.
Mm.
So that's a side in which you're over or under indexing. So if I told you, Jen, that one of my values is kindness, and you're telling me, you're my leader, and you're saying, Aiko, you need to be able to give Rick this feedback, this critical feedback that he needs to hear. And I'm like, well, it just doesn't feel good. You're asking me to do something that's not in alignment with my values. My value is kindness. And you're asking me to go in here and to blah, 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 blah with Rick. That's so out of my values, Jen. I'm not. So this is where the critical card of understanding what's the impact. So
Yep.
how you litmus test your values. Okay, so Aiko, your value is kindness. What's the impact that this value should lead you to have? And I say, I want people to feel seen. I want them to be able to be their best selves. I want blah, 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 blah. And Jen, the amazing coach that you are, you'd say, huh, so by not telling Rick the truth, and the what is happening in terms of this the impact he's having or how he's underperforming, is that in alignment with your value? Because it sounds like that's not the impact you would want to have. And I might say, you know what, you're right, even though it feels cruddy to me and it might feel cruddy to him, actually the kind thing to do is to be honest and to tell him about blah blah blah. That's how we align, is the impact aligned in terms of with the value. Firsthand, when I was saying you're asking me to act outside of my values, Jen,
Yes.
actually, no, because I'm the one out of alignment because I'm having an impact I don't want to have. It's not in alignment with the value of kindness. So now
Yes, by
now,
omitting like the truth, you're actually not being kind.
yes, or not doing the hard thing in terms of having the hard conversation with Rick. So oftentimes people will play into the shadow side of their value. And the
Interesting.
yes is when they're naming their value and the behaviors that are attributed to that value, you ask them, well, okay, if you're doing this in your own line, what's the impact you're having on others? What's the impact you're having in the world? How does that feel for you somatically? Because these are all the tests to figure out, are you in alignment with that value? Because
So how
right,
do you know if you're operating from the shadow side or not? Do you just
the
feel
impact,
off? The impact, the
it's the
impact.
impact. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Because now I may be trying to make myself feel really comfortable because I'm in my value of kindness and I'm not doing that mean thing to Rick. Whereas in truth, whoa, what's the impact though? By you not acting and doing X, Y, and Z, you actually are not fulfilling what the impact is that you want, which is for people to feel whole, for people to be able to be, their best selves, for people, whatever the behaviors are that go with and the impact that goes with that value of kindness is for that person. And then you realize, the value itself is trash if you're not having the impact and you're doing all the things that are even keeping you in alignment with the impact. That's trash. So let's have real talk here.
I love how you're like, that's trash. Let's start
Yeah.
again. So, okay, so here's another example before we keep on keeping on. So, I just had a conversation with a non-named person, and she did not get a position at an organization, and she was a little bummed about it, as one would, right? They're putting their heart into the application and the interview process. And I believe, but I'm going to go back, Aiko. I will let you know. Like, I think one of mine is just that authenticity, like just being really authentic. I'm going to use the word authenticity. We'll see if it's honesty where I land with that value. But when I asked her, I said, hey, so and so, did you get the feedback you needed as to why you didn't get the role? So, like, was there something in the interview you need to improve? Was there something like in your job performance? Like, da 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 da. This person responded and said, well, all I was told is that I didn't have the experience. And I was like, my type one, like Enneagram was like, I don't think so. So I went back to that manager and I said, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you actually meet with that person again? Because she's kind of demotivated because we haven't been completely transparent and authentic with her, or whatever the word is, right? To say, this is why you didn't get this position. And in the future, no promises, but this is how you can grow. Here's your path forward. And the response that I got kind of shocked me. It was, well, no one listens after the thanks for applying, but I'm like, but you don't have to say it that way. So is that an example where maybe like my values were a little like on behalf of someone else may have been a little like my hair definitely was like back the opposite way, Aiko. I don't know how else to say it. Like I was like a cat, like with like when she told me that, like my fur was the wrong direction. And I was like, I don't think so. So any thoughts on that example?
Sure, it sounds like those were your values at play because you're like, wait, we're not getting the truth here. You're not actually telling us what we would even need to know in order to understand who you all are as a company and what does it mean to actually even be able to get this position in terms of the truth of the matter. Now, I didn't ask you about well, let me ask you now, what are the behaviors that would go with authenticity, Jen?
Okay, so it's similar to your idea of loyalty. So like just being really straight up, even to the point where if it hurts me, it's okay. I'd rather just know that I have trust, deep trust that if I'm talking to you, that I'm going to get it straight. That's what it feels like to me, where I don't have to worry about putting my mask up or Brene would say, armoring up, and you have to armor up. Like there's just a realness about you, and that I can just be me, which is me on the weekends, like Aiko. So like it's like sweatpant Jen. We're hanging out over coffee, like, and we're just shooting it straight. That's why I love my podcast because almost all of my guests just shoot it straight with me, and that really feeds my soul. Hopefully, that answers the question.
So then, in looking at how this company showed up, it was not in alignment with your value. They weren't
No,
giving this person straight. This person got some kind of template email. Now they never understand the truth of the matter, and they're just kind of in this Netherlands space. And you're thinking, why don't you all just tell us what the real deal is? Makes
right.
perfect sense that that's why, that was an affront to your values, right? Makes sense.
Yeah, so for me, even if it wasn't hers, like I kind of like did overstep there. So we'll talk about leadership. I felt like almost drawn in that scenario because of my value to almost protect her like a mama bear, being like, no, 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 we need to tell you straight, because you need to know what to do moving forward if you do want an opportunity at this company. I don't know if that was right or wrong, or there may not be a right or wrong, but it definitely, I felt like I needed to help her.
Mhm. Yeah, I wonder if what's your second value? If you just had to have two, what would the second one be?
Probably something around like freedom
Hmm.
or exploration. So, like, I hate being boxed in. Like, I just can't stand it. I like to have as much like white space around me to go create. And if
Mhm.
you tell me like no, I'm kind of like, well, I'm that annoying kid. Like, well, why? Like, how can we do it differently? Like, what, don't tell me no. It's like definitely like freedom and the space to like stretch out and explore. I just actually went to Europe for the first time by myself since I was a college student last year. And I realized I'm like, oh, this wasn't just like a college thing. Like, I need this for my soul. Like, I need to have lots of space to stretch out, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Mhm. And now I could see how that situation with your client may have been even more agitating. Because one of the things that you mentioned was, wow, how is she going to be able to know what she needs to do later? Like she doesn't even, so this idea of she's restricted in this way without having this knowledge and this insight. Like now she's limited because you all aren't giving her what she needs in order to be more expansive and to be at the next
Oh
extra.
God, so good. This is why you have your coaching firm.
Now, one of the things I would ask you or want you to explore is, what does it look like for Jen in terms of boundaries? Because one of
Yeah.
the things I heard you use, or one of the phrases I heard you say was like a mama bear,
Yes.
somebody who's not your child.
I know. This is part of the reason I burnt out. See what I mean?
But what does it look like for, let's just say, client's name is Beth, for Beth to have that conversation?
Right. Versus like me directly, or you know what I mean? Like taking swooping in, right? And like saving the day, like putting my cape on versus like her putting her own cape on.
Mhm.
Mm,
So part of a large body of work that I am a big believer in is um, this idea. Funny, you said your other value is freedom, is what I would call agency and permission.
mm,
So if you're a woman, if you are somebody who is usually seen as the one who should be in service to others no matter what, are the
mm,
person who has to get small in order for other people to feel comfortable, whatever that looks like.
mm-hmm,
My my challenge for people who find themselves in those spaces is what does it look like for you to give yourself permission not to shrink?
mm,
What does it look like for you to give yourself permission not to save, not to fix, not to be the nurturer of all the others who will gladly take and allow you to play that role until you're on the side of the street with nothing left for yourself to even thrive from? But what does it look like when somebody says that thing that's really out of pocket and you feel like now you need to go and educate them and give them insight? What happens if you give yourself permission to just not and to also not internalize and feel any kind of activated way about it? Because that's another way of your capacity being taken. What does it look like for us to have agency to not do all of those things that can feel so nurturing or for others and what we should be doing for others and can help us feel validated that we belong in the space because we're the caretaker and the fixer for everyone else. And I
God, I've
want,
got a lot of homework around there. So I'm
well,
thinking
let's
of,
have
and this
that
is dating
agency.
me. Yeah, this is dating me big time. But as you're saying that, I'm thinking of this old movie that I loved called Groundhog Day with
What?
Bill Murray.
Yes, I know it. Yes, with John
And
Belushi
do you know how
and
he's like running
McDowell.
around and like catching the kid from the tree? And he's like,
Yes,
next time, maybe I won't do it because the kid doesn't say thank you.
yes.
And I think that I'm in there. I think so many women, we're like running around every day and we're like catching our kids and catching our like coworkers and catching our team members. And we're like, we're just so done and depleted. And maybe we don't have to, like you're saying.
But who says that we actually have to?
I know. I think that's
So
part of
it's
the
not a maybe.
boxes.
It's
Like
not a
it goes
maybe we
full
don't have
circle
to.
for what we're talking about. All the boxes. It's like I must be a caretaker. I must be a fixer, right? And maybe we can get rid of those boxes. I don't know.
And it's not a mate. That's what I mean. I think that there is a certainly we can get rid of these boxes and ask whose boxes are these and who do they serve? What happens if there aren't these boxes and I start from ground zero of how do I want it to be? One of the questions I always ask my clients with whatever they're bringing in is, well, tell me, how do you want it to be? And then
Mm,
we work backwards from there about the delta for them to get it to how they want it to be. And many times people may not be able to envision how they want it to be, but they can tell you what they don't want it to be. I don't want to be so burned out all the time. I don't want to be tired. I don't want to be resentful because that kid in the tree never says thank you. I don't want to be X. So we very well might know what we don't want it to be, and that can help us to understand how we want it to be. When you're not burnt out, how do you feel? Gosh, like I can actually think and I can sit down for a minute, that I can rest. And I can also, be able to be expansive and think about things that I don't have time to think about. I can't even tell you what those things are because I don't have time to think about them. But one of the starting points that we have, that I always have with my clients is how do you want it to be? And that may be, as we said, them saying what they don't want it to be like. But also, we ask this other question of how does it feel in your body when you're painting that picture? And usually, Jen, we can even somatically see what's happening for a client. Oh man, it'd be great if I could. Oh man, I'd be able to. And even as the coach, being able to say, man, when you said that, you laid back for a minute, you sat back like you were on the beach. Wow, your shoulders just dropped for a minute.
yeah.
You, they're in their space and they never get to be in that flow. So we have the gift and the privilege as coaches to be able to support people and create the container for them to envision how do they want it to be? And that how do you want it to be will give them the steps towards who does that require you to be? What are you doing differently? Huh? What do you want to experiment with?
That is so good. Oh my God, I'm gonna have to listen to this show myself. And I'm patting us on the back. I go like I'm patting us on the back. Man, there's some good stuff in here of those questions.
I
So
want to
those
set
are
a
good
vision.
starters too. Like, how do you want it to be? Or if you don't know, because you're still checking those boxes, like, how do you not want it to be?
Yeah. I don't want to be tired. I don't want to be going around like when you were just describing that Groundhog's Day scene, Jen, you were like, and going around catching people, like that frenetic energy that we have, right? Rushing
Yes,
out, our hands out, trying to be the net for everybody. That somatic knowing that you just had when your body was like this, that's how it feels. And when that time between 4 and 6, for a lot of moms and folk caretakers around the world, it's called the arsenic hour because we
yeah,
are killing ourselves trying to hold all of this up, rushing about and maybe thinking there might be an iota of someone pausing to say thank you. Maybe.
maybe.
So that idea of if people were able to give themselves permission and agency so that they can have a boundaried life that's serving them, would just be a gift. And I hope that more people can get that gift, right? And find spaces to
Mm-hmm.
challenge all the boxes they're trying to check that are killing them, literally
Mm.
killing
Literally killing them. So before we wrap up, I want people to hear about your coaching, right?
them.
And you call it rare coaching. So I wanted to ask you, maybe it's just because it is rare, but tell me why it's called that and like about, a little bit more about your model because I obviously you're doing things differently.
Yeah, so rare, exactly, because it is rare, RARE, to have coaches who are one willing to have the same filter or lens that you have so they can walk beside you and also be able to ask questions that allow for other pathways to present themselves to you. Because sometimes we think, we don't even get to the point, Jen, to say, I need to give myself permission to do this or that. There's no other way because this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and this is what I should be doing. We shoot ourselves to death instead of to ask the question of, what would happen if you didn't do that? So to be able to have a coach who is walking beside you, not as a knower, but a Sherpa on your journey, non-judgmental container, spaciousness for you and not for them to talk, not for them to be sharing all their stories and let me tell you about me, but a space for you to hear yourself and where
Mm-hmm.
somebody is going to mirror what they're seeing so that you can make meaning of it. The
Mm-hmm.
unconditional positive regard for your client, the knowing of the coach that they don't know everything and that the client is the only one who could possibly have the answers of what should be done next because they are different and they have a totally different inner landscape. But I'm going to be right here with you on this journey with unconditional positive regard, non judgment, and giving you a space that it requires. And I think a lot of people don't get that, especially in this world of all the oversensory, experiences that we have, the busyness, the rushing, and trying to fulfill this should container an agenda that is not ours and is
Mm.
not in support of us.
Well, like you were saying, I mean, it's giving them just like that maybe 1 hour or whatever time and space just to like be themselves, right? And to figure out like where they want to go next when they probably don't have any moments during the day to do that. I'm assuming your clients are just like this, right? Like they're moving in all these different directions and you're just giving them that safe place to land and to explore where they would like to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly right, Jen. And it is usually the space where they can just be in self-discovery. Like figure out who do I want to be and what am I hearing from myself right now? Most of us live a life that's very disembodied. We don't know what our body is telling us somatically. We don't know what it feels like to be in our bodies just in a stationary space. We live from here to here, from our
Mm-hmm.
shoulder and up in terms of thinking, knowing, doing, etc. versus, huh, who is it I want to be? How do I feel in my body? What's my body telling me? Somatically and being embodied, most of us are not there. So I think that is the gift of coaching. And I think right now, like in the space that we're at where things can feel so polarized as well, that importance of people being so clearly anchored into who they are, which your values are one core part of that. And being actually this is the name of my book that's coming in January. So
Ooh,
it's,
okay. Can you share the
it's
name or no? Not yet.
yeah, it's anchored, aligned, and accountable. But it's
Ooh,
anchored
okay.
in your
Okay.
values.
Excited. We'll have to have you back like when it comes out then. Okay. Got it.
Yep, January 2026.
Woo.
Being anchored in your values, being aligned in terms of your actions are aligned with your values, your actions are aligned with your the impact.
Mm-hmm.
Impact is happening, what we're just saying, and accountability. And we know that in this world that we're living in right now, there's such a dearth of accountability in terms of people holding themselves accountable or holding others accountable. And there's a lack of courage and bravery to one, look ourselves in the mirror, for to allow other people to be the mirror for us, and also to have to hold our ecosystems accountable for the impact they're having.
Mm-hmm.
It was anchored, aligned, accountable. I think when the world is crazy, it is the formula to help us to not only be grounded, but to be the ground for ourselves. Because you
Mm.
can't keep looking externally. And we've got to have
Okay, I'm
those
excited.
people to be the ground for ourselves.
Yeah, no, you said January next year?
Yeah, Penguin Random House, January next year.
All right. I'm so excited for you. Yes, I will definitely be picking up a copy and we'll reach out to your team so we can feature it. So, as we close here, so what are 1 to 2 ways women can be braver at work today?
Mm, Standing on their values.
Yes. Let's
And
get rid of
please,
those boxes that don't belong. Maybe that's the second one, but no, I'll let you go.
but I do think in terms of how can they be braver at work, it means one being boundaried and being
Yeah.
boundaried in connection to who they aspire to be and how they want to be. The other thing is to hold themselves accountable with grace and generosity for the impact they're having on themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know those are so, so good. So how can women find your work if they'd like to coach with you, or it sounds like you have a pretty sizable team? Where can they connect with you online?
So on Instagram, we're at rare, RARE underscore coach.
Yep.
And we're on LinkedIn, not only under Rare Coaching and Consulting, but also me, Aiko Bethea, as well. And then, of course, on our site, which is rarecoaching.net.
Okay, great. Well, Aiko, I've had such a good time and really learned a lot. I'm going to go back. I absolutely am going to go back and listen and do some kind of rediscovery of my values and answer some of the key questions you asked, because I think that of all of my recent podcast interviews, it almost feels like we had a like kind of a joint interview coaching session and really we had some good stuff there. So thank you for all of the wonderful work you do with Rare Coaching, and best wishes for your book in January of next year.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jen.
Well, that's a wrap on my discussion with Aiko today. I hope you found our conversation both valuable and inspiring. As a reminder, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The show is also available on any other podcast platform you enjoy. Until next time, show up, be a rare leader, and be brave.